Hello everyone and welcome back to Unity of Command. This is the campaign scenario Taifun from the Blackturn DLC. Oh boy, Taifun. This is the cherry on the top of the cake. This is the pinnacle of this campaign. It's not the last scenario, but it is by far the biggest and the most complex one of them all. In fact, if you look at it, you'll see that it grants us 2300 points, whereas the second biggest map or the second biggest point allocation is 1200, so practically half of it. It is everything that can be found in this game. So this scenario creator just really put all the elements into this one. It's a very complex and extremely challenging map, but once you know what you're doing, you don't need much luck to win actually. On the other hand, it will take you a few tries if you don't know what you're doing to find the correct strategy. It took me like 4 or 5 or 6 tries to figure it out, and each try can take up to 2 hours, so this can be a very frustrating scenario. So let's read the description. September the 30th, 1941. Leningrad is under siege and Soviet forces in the south are in disarray. With the campaign season coming to a close, Germans plan to deal a crippling blow in the center, capturing Moscow before the winter sets in. And right off the bat, we see that the Soviets outnumber the Axis forces 2-1 easily, especially in infantry. And what you don't see is that the Axis forces receive 0, and I mean 0 reinforcements, not even a step or anything. And the Soviets receive an ungodly amount of reinforcements. They practically build up whole armies during the course of this scenario. So that's one thing you need to consider. On the other hand, the Axis gets 2 air attacks per turn indefinitely, and this can be put to good use. Alright? This is going to be the first scenario which I have to break up the video into at least 2 parts, because it is a huge map and I need to explain a lot of things about it. So first of all, the whole area, you can see that it's full of units, the whole map. And this is a kind of a cone-shaped or a V-shaped map. The extreme southeast is cut off, as you can see. And this whole area can be broken into, or the front line can be broken into 4 sectors, each having one supply route connecting it. So, starting from the north, we have this one starting coming from Veliki Luki towards Rev. And here we are severely outnumbered and outgunned. We only have standard infantry units. One infantry unit has a pioneer special step, and we also get a veteran Panzer Division, but it is of the weaker kind. The second sector coming from the north is a promising one, and this is the one closest to Moscow, as well as 2 other objectives. I'll talk about the objectives in a moment. And at first glance, this is the easiest sector, because we have a lot of veteran, fast-moving, strong units, 2 motorized divisions, including the Leer division, and 3 Panzer Divisionen. We also have at least 1 pioneer unit with us. So if you just push ahead, then capturing Moscow is not at all difficult, to be honest. But then you will lose the map, as I'll explain in a moment. Then the next sector is actually, we are going to break it up into 2 halves. So we have this northern half and in the southern half as well, but the forces are bunched up in the middle. Once again, tank divisions, we have pioneers with us, 3 pioneer units, so 3 pioneer special steps. And we have the 2nd SS division, Das Reich, which is elite and motorized and has 5 active steps, 5 standard steps. We also get two reinforcing units from the west, but you'll see what happens to them. Further on in the south, we have this front line, where we only get useful units like tanks and two motorized divisions, but we don't really get any infantry units to back us up, to buffer and to screen off our progress. So this promises a different challenge. And the same thing is true for the south, except for the so the southernmost front that is facing Kursk, except for the fact that these units don't face such severe resistance, and this looks like an area where the tanks can roam ahead and you know can deal some good damage to the Soviets. As for the Soviets, this is one of the first things you realize when you're playing this map. Practically, at least on the defensive, they're usually superior to your forces. So the standard infantry divisions won't cut it. You really need to use your best units to push through. The standard units are okay to mop up and to destroy already battered, weakened units, but the Soviets field a whole lot of special steps. Almost all of them have either a gun like this one with a 122mm M30, or this one with the 45mm M42, and a lot of them have tanks as well. So this unit has a KV-1 attachment, but these two cavalry divisions have a T-34 special step attached to them, which makes them extremely powerful. And although cavalry divisions in themselves are pretty weak and lame, with the speed and this added power, they're actually quite forced to reckon. Another T-34, another T-34, another T-34, another T-34. I'm highlighting these units because they are the best units. So the T-34 is the best special step the Soviets field, and no matter where you look, special steps everywhere. These units are extremely strong, and you have to be really careful to when you're battling them. Also, we have some units that are, for instance, veterans. So capturing the city of Orel is practically impossible. It's in a river bend, so you need to attack from the south when you attack it from the east, and it's defended by a unit that is dug in, that is entrenched, has several standard steps and a gun. Nothing that you have can break it easily. So the only reason, the only way to remove the Kursk and Orel garrisons is to cut them off from supply, which is very tricky, as you will see. Not only that, but interestingly enough, the way to win this map is to win on all fronts separately, and you need kind of separate, so that you need different strategies to win on the different front sectors. So practically you need to capture the whole map. That's not really true, because you don't need to capture the easternmost and northeasternmost parts of the map, but you need to capture the vast majority of this map, and more importantly, you need to win along all avenues. If you don't, then you are going to miss out on at least one of the objectives, and then you will fail. Alright, so talking about objectives, let's check them out. We have only 5 objectives to hit on this huge map, and at first glance they don't seem very tricky. Vyazma up first, to be captured by the end of turn 4. Capture Vyazma with a pincer movement before the Western Front can retreat. Right, so this is a very easy objective to hit. If you use your elite forces in the west, or veteran forces in the west, and push directly through, then this will collapse very easily. You can capture it on turn 3 easily. However, if you use these forces to capture it, then you will lose the game, at least lose brilliant victory, as I'll explain later. Furthermore to the east, further to the east is Mozhaisk. The Mozhaisk line and the highway it protects guard the western approaches to Moscow, to be taken by turn 7. This is the easiest objective of them all. I literally never failed it, so if I manage to capture Vyazma in time, then I have always managed to capture Mozhaisk. This is kind of a no-brainer. It just makes you, stretch your advance a bit further ahead, but then you actually get to stop here. The next one is the tricky one. Kalinin. Capturing Kalinin and its surroundings is required for flank protection from the north. And as you can see, it's quite far out in the north. And in the first like 3 or 4 tries, I managed to capture everything else, or rather, I was on my in time to capture everything else on a good making good progress. But Kalinin was eluding me. There was no way I could capture it because you see these units in the north that are allocated on this front are totally insufficient to get there, and the Soviets actually bunch up around Rev. They will retreat partially, they will get reinforcements as well, so they bunch up here. There is no way that the northern front can push through. I tried sending a unit across and using my air attacks and that unit to attack Kalinin. That also is impossible to succeed that way, in my opinion. So I actually had to revamp the whole strategy, and the way this map works, and this is in a way it's crazy. On the other hand, it's quite brilliant. Is you need these units to attack to the northeast. You cannot allow them to take part in the battle for Vyazma, and this is very tricky because of the supply situation, as we'll see. So these units will cut to the northeast, take Rev, and with a somewhat something of an encirclement, cutting off at least some of these units in the west, along with, of course, our units arriving from the extreme north. They will be able to capture Rev, do another kind of pincer movement, and then Kalinin is actually easy to take. So this is the strategy you have to use to win this map. But you're going to ask me now what is going to capture Vyazma by the end of turn 4, because these standard infantry units definitely won't cut it against a river crossing, forces beyond the river with tanks, special steps, etc. And you're right. So the way it works is that you need to allocate quite a lot of these forces here to the northeast, or rather directly to the north, and they need to use this supply source and an attack here to punch through and capture Vyazma and then Moshaizk. This can be tricky, so if you fail it, that's fine. At least you failed relatively early and you can restart the map. You also need to retain some forces that will punch through towards the southeast and capture Bryansk. You absolutely need to do that. These units in the next front sector won't be able to win this battle on their own, as you will see. And the next objective is also a very smart and witty and critical one, and this can get also frustrating. It's Tula. The city of Tula is the traditional arms manufacturer for the Russian army. It is also right in our way towards Moscow. I wouldn't call this right in our way, to be honest. And by the way, Kalinin needs to be captured by turn 11, by the end of turn 11, Moshaizk by the end of turn 7, Vyazma, as I mentioned, by the end of turn 4, and Tula needs to be captured by the end of turn 12. And the way the supply works is that theoretically you can just use this supply route and attack across, but now if you look at it, you'll see that it's defended by one strong unit, right? But by the time you get there, it's going to have a whole army that has spawned in and bunched up around the city. It is a huge concentration of forces. And so what I highly recommend you do is you actually capture the southeasternmost supply line, going through Kursk and Orel. This is extremely tricky, but I'll show you how it can be done, and you will be able to do it all the time. However, you still need at least a bit of luck to capture Tula. Once I figured out the correct strategy to do on this map, I actually managed to capture the first 3 objectives in time easily. And Tula, I failed Tula by 1 turn. So this is, in my opinion, the trickiest one, because you need at least a little bit of luck to get there. Not much, to be honest. So it's not like Tartar Ditch or anything like that. It's a reasonable map. Once you figure it out, this map can provide an exhilarating experience when you succeed. And of course, the final target is Moscow, 1 hex in the city itself. Capital of the Soviet Union is at the heart of its industrial and transportation systems. Moscow is extremely easy, so once you've hit all other targets in time, all other victory hexes, then you are practically guaranteed to to capture Moscow, and it's a truly great experience when all your forces converge and coalesce on the city, and you're just crashing into the city, and nothing can stop you. You're punching through their defenses. That's not going to happen on your first try. One thing that you definitely need to note is the weather. This map is hard coded to have a special weather effect. A snowstorm is going to hit you, which means that for a few turns the terrain is going to turn to muck. Supplies will run low, so the supply distances, supply ranges are going to be like halved or something. It's really badly hit. Your units won't be able to move practically at all, so they will normally be able to cover very little terrain, and your attacks are basically doomed to failure. You can do very little in that time to progress, and this is inevitable, so you absolutely need to calculate with it. The storm already begins before turn 5, and it will end by turn 10 the latest, I think, probably a bit earlier, turning this whole battlefield into a snowy field or icy field, which is actually great for warfare. So you can recommence or continue your attack. This is very surprising when you first play this map. So you think you're making relatively good progress, and then suddenly it all goes to waste and you fail the mission. But I like it for the reason that it really seems that every element of this game is thrown against you, and you can still push through with good strategy, and truly with good strategy. So it's not because you get lucky. With so many units, you cannot get constantly lucky. All right, the terrain. I'm not going to waste much on the terrain because there are a lot of rivers, and we're going to talk more about it when we see the turns play out. But in general, the more south and more east the map is, the more open it is, and the more suited for breakthroughs and armored warfare, and in general for to play the kind of area warfare, and to play around with supplies, etc. In the north, it's more swampy and forested, and it is more of a meat grinder. The northernmost front will practically have to pull through, and this turns into a really sad and grindy battle. The supplies are crazy. We have one supply source in the far northeast, which is of no consequence. Let's forget about it. And all the roads have a supply source. So all the roads that enter the map on our side of the map, that is already on our hands, have a supply source with a range of 8. You absolutely need to stick to these supply rights and capture them, as much of them as you can, and as soon as you can. And once again, I'll talk about the map in detail once it's playing out. But for instance, just want to let you know that, for instance, to capture Kursk, you need to cut it off completely, because it also has its own little supply source. The Soviets are well in supply. All of their supply sources have a range of 8, and all of them are on roads, except for this one in the far northwest, which is totally useless for them as well, so it's not really interesting. Moscow itself is a supply source. As you can see, all the roads branch out from Moscow. Normally you cannot cut them off, or at least not huge portions of their units, but we will see at least some units suffer supply depletion during the game. The weather sometimes helps us in this regard, to be honest, and sometimes we need to force it, even with this system setup. So there is a lot more to talk about this map, but let's begin. And the first thing that I do is I disband this unit. This is not a mistake. This is something crucial. This is something I had to learn on this map. Is you have to use reorganization, so reorganize units and reorganize steps. I already explained how this mechanic works. So basically, you remove a unit, and the next turn its type appears as reinforcement steps. As I've mentioned, you receive no reinforcements whatsoever for this map, nothing at all. So the steps are very funny because you can remove a standard unit like a normal infantry division, and you can reinforce the SS with it, and obviously its stats are much higher. So it's a way to convert your less valuable units into more valuable ones. This tank is relatively far from the front line. It wouldn't be able to attack in the first turn anyway, and it is of the weaker type, not much weaker admittedly, but if we reinforce stronger units with it, thereby creating really powerful units, then it's worth it. It will be able to be, we can put it to good use already on turn 3. So it's definitely the way to go. And you must also make sure on this map to always have on every turn from turn 2 onwards the maximum allocated reinforcements available. And that maximum normally on most maps is 5. However, on this map it's limited to 2, so it's another difficulty that you have to overcome. But still, these tank divisions in the south, for instance, all have only 4 steps each. 4-step tank divisions are not that scary. A 6-step tank division, however, is a force to be reckoned with, and that's why I highly recommend you disband this unit. And if any of your tank units get low on active steps, I also on steps in general, I also recommend reorganizing them and attaching them to stronger units. However, the reorganized steps appear in the order that the units were disbanded. So on the one hand, you want to always have some units of some steps available for reinforcements, either tanks, preferably tanks, but at least infantry. On the other hand, if you reorganize a lot of units, first of all, then you won't have them, and you won't have the benefit of them on the map as well. So you have to constantly reorganize and reinforce units as the map goes on. As I said, this is a very tricky map. So once I reorganize this unit, we can begin. And we will start with the north. This is a river, and we need to force a river crossing. This is not at all difficult, as you can see. And unfortunately, the tank unit cannot get here. The furthest it can get is the bridge. But you absolutely need to push it to the front as much as you can. And the interesting part about this front line is that you can almost totally abandon the northern sector. I recommend leaving 1 unit here, as you will soon see here, for the time being at least. The Soviets can remain in supply, but they cannot push through if you leave at least 1 unit here. They cannot cut you off, and if they try, they will just simply bunch up here and run out of supply. The AI is not going to do that. Instead, it's going to retreat. You also cannot really advance here. You would run out of supply very quickly. The terrain is really unfavorable for any kind of warfare. So this is a front line that you should totally abandon. That's it. Now in the next, the second front line from the north, we are doing exactly as I predicted we would. We are pushing ahead. We need to threaten the Soviet forces. We need to get to Kharkiv, and we need to help out the northernmost front line. So interestingly, although this is one of the 2 strongest conglomeration of our forces, we are actually going to not use them to capture victory points at all. Be careful, be mindful of your supply at all times, and always be careful to screen your supply. So don't attack. Of course, you can attack such weakened units, but don't use your standard infantry units, normally at least, to attack the Soviets. They will give you a beating. The reason I'm attacking here is because we are in numerical superiority, and I really want to at least make some progress to extend our supply line here. And this Soviet unit is extremely resilient for some reason, but finally we managed to destroy it. And we push ahead. This second attack goes horribly, and basically that's as far as we can get. We're screening off the road. So far so good. And in the next part, next sector, front sector, as I've mentioned, we need to push, we need to break them around here, around this area, and we need to allocate some units and push towards Vyazma, our very first objective. It's really funny, but there is no other way. If you allocate the northern units any of the northern units here, then you will fail the mission. It's that simple. So you need to break up this little force. It's not a little force. This is probably your most powerful unit or little battle group. But you need to break it apart and send at least some of them towards the north. I attack here. This goes very poorly, but at least the pioneers have a better chance, and they actually have made good progress, relatively good progress. I'm trying to whittle down this unit, and it goes relatively well. Now the gun is suppressed, and so it is more prone to be destroyed. And yep, and here comes the tanks. So as I've said, they are crucial. Pull at least 2 tanks. They are going to be enough. And of course, with the infantry push, that's also going to help a lot. Don't worry, you are in supply here, so the road is relatively close here. This allows the capture of Vyazma, and yeah, that's all you can do here in this front. Push ahead as far as you can get on turn number 1, and then screen off your supply route. Now we need to capture Bryansk, which is in a river bend, so just beyond the river. This is going to go very poorly in this match for some reason. This is actually easier to capture than the way it happened here on this turn. Sorry, on this playthrough. This was like as I said, my 6th attempt or something, and this was a very poor attack, unfortunately. You have to also find the balance. This comes with the experience of playing this map. You cannot lose too many units, but you also cannot spare them too much, because if you don't use your infantry units at all, then you will sorely miss so that then what happens is that the enemy will also remain stronger, and they will bunch up against your elite forces, which you don't want. So you want to at least trade a few of your infantry units to theirs. Even if that trade goes unfavorably, these elite units will actually make better trades, so overall you'll come out on top. Of course, don't suicide your units. So for instance, this is a very powerful one, and of course the one with the T-34 is extremely good. So yeah, don't do that. What I do here is I try to weaken down this T-30 unit with the T-34 special step, and it immediately removes my Pioneer special step, so it was not worth it, and I'm very sad about it. But now that we've initiated this battle, I don't want to give up, even though it is still going very poorly, as you can see. Now this was better. And here now we need to shield off our supply route, so we cannot allow the enemy to cut us off. And that's it. I'm not saying this was a very clean attempt, but at least the unit with the T-34 is this one at least is far weaker. We still have quite a few ones here in the back, unfortunately, and here too. Now comes the next sector. Actually, as we switch to the southernmost sector, the idea is to push. Now you have a lot of room. This is one where you almost outnumber the Soviets, at least. So this is relatively good, and you can. And after 2 attacks, even though this second one was a bit costly, this unit is completely out of supply. So that means that it's going to fall. Yep, easy peasy. And then once again, as I've mentioned, we push. Our objective here, believe it or not, is to cut off Kursk, try to destroy as many of these units here as we can, kind of link up for a moment with the next battle group, and to advance. We cannot take Kursk until this unit is completely out of supply, so cut it off and just keep pushing forward, try to remain in supply, while also leaving at least 1 unit behind. A weakened infantry division will suffice. Once this unit is out of supply, it's just going to break. Really interesting though that this unit receives supply from the northern road as well as here. This supply source is only here to help Kursk, so you cannot cut it off with a movement around here, so with an eastern strike forks like here, striking towards the east here. So you need to actually completely encircle it. Alright. In the middle sector, or the next sector, the second sector from the south, the the notion here is that we are superior to the Soviets in a one-on-one fight, but we don't have infantry to buffer for us. So what you need to do, what we are trying to do, is we are trying to capture as much of the road as we can. And this got very unlucky. We managed to destroy that unit, but in exchange we lost 4 active steps to suppressed, which means this unit is extremely weak and the Soviets will try to capitalize on it. Normally I would have wanted this unit to go towards the south, but I feel that I need to send it to defend the 29th Mechanized Division, Motorized Division. And this goes okay. We're also bringing some infantry units for, meat shields later. And this turn, I did not use my air attack. This was not really a mistake. I just wanted to see if I needed somewhere badly, but I didn't. So I used use it to bomb the first Victory Axe, which goes relatively poorly. And now, after a bit more shuffling, it's time for the Soviets' turn. And you'll immediately see that they will start spawning in units like crazy. And I don't know if you caught that one, but they just spawned a mechanized, guards motorized rifle division, which is veteran, has 7 active steps, and the KV-1. This unit can easily match, at least on the defense, anything that we have here. Anything. So don't take the Soviets for easy prey. They will beat you up if you don't play this map correctly. All right. The AI kind of understands the threat and wants to seal us off wherever we made a breach or a dent in the front line. So obviously it uses its entrenchment as usual, so it moves out of entrenchment pretty commonly, pretty often. But that's why I mentioned that if you don't use your infantry units to at least weaken some of the Soviet units or remove at least a few of them from the map, then what you will see is that you have a completely unsurmountable amount of Soviet units in your face when you're looking at your strongest units that are breaking through. And this is what I mentioned. This poor unit got a beating for its bravery. And yeah, as you can see, the AI actually attacks quite often because it knows that it has better units than we do, and it's right. So it uses its attacks sparingly, but it still can be quite formidable. On the other hand, we already have the very first Soviet units that are out of supply already on turn 1, like this one, like these ones. Granted, they are beyond bad terrain like river. But you will need to use at least some of it to cut off a few units from supply. You cannot afford to destroy everything on even turns, even though the map is not really suitable for this kind of strategy to cut them off from supply. And interestingly enough, since there is a storm here, as you can see from the terrain, these Soviet units in the middle of their own area are running out of supply. They will get resupplied, but this already shows you how bad the weather can hit you. And of course they receive a bunch of extra steps to reinforce their units as well every turn. So really, you have to prepare that every turn you're just going to see more and more of the Soviets. All right, let's just see one more turn. So first of all, I use both of my reinforcing steps that I can use to reinforce this Panzer division. This turn it doesn't really matter, but from the next turn onwards it is going to have 6 active steps. I don't know why I didn't put the veteran one. I mean, that would have been a better idea, but oh well. And the Panzer division with 6 steps is quite a formidable item on the battlefield. Now we need to push, and I sacrificed this unit deliberately so I don't need to shuffle it out, and at least it causes 2 suppression damage, which was excellent. And so we can more easily. I was hoping that unit would retreat. It didn't, so this plan goes a bit poorly. But obviously we managed to kind of defeat it and destroy it as well. Bang. We need to widen the gap, or at least we try to widen the gap a bit. We are still trying to keep in supply later on. And here in this other sector, I'm just jumping randomly between sectors. We are trying to force our progress along the supply route. Unfortunately, this is a unit with the T-34, so as you can see, it is extremely powerful. This was a full strength, 5 active steps, standard infantry division, and it got absolutely annihilated. It got destroyed. It only caused 3 suppressed step damage, but now we cannot give up. Now that we actually caused it some damage, we need to push at it. Finally, we removed the special step. And yeah, the way it works here is that this unit is on our side of the river for some reason, so I decide to remove it. This shouldn't pose a threat, and I don't care if I don't post a unit here. If this Soviet Rifle Division decides to march across the river, which it is free to do, then it will be easy prey for our backwards unit. Alright, in the north, the strategy is very simple. Push only along the supply line, and destroy units if you can, and obviously we can, so at least some of them. But causing casualties is not a priority really here, so we just need to create a kind of a conga line along the road, and that's it really. Again, if you can cause good damage, do that. But try to find a balance. You need these units, so it was worth it. This series of attacks was worth it, but we are not throwing away units just like that. And we are putting these infantry units here, so that we are screening our supply route, and we are keeping all of these units in supply, right? Oops. Next, we try to attack this unit with the T-34, and it goes pretty horribly, but at least for the next attack the enemy is worthless, so it was kind of worth it overall. And yeah, and for those units that we cannot remove, we just try to cut them off, separate them, and don't care about it. This unit is excellent, but our SS division is even better, so we are trying to create a push towards Bryansk, this city here. Unfortunately, it is really well defended, so you can a frontal assault will not work at all. You will just keep losing units to it, so don't do that. You will need to circumvent the city, and you need to do it relatively fast, because our units in the next sector won't be able to hold for long. So they are outnumbered heavily, and they won't manage, so you need to act upon it. I decide to cut off this unit and wait it out till it's at least partially out of supply, and I rush the SS here so it can cross the river next time. It will remain in supply, at least directly on the other side of the river, so it can keep attacking. Right, again, be mindful that you always keep all your the supply line intact. If I bring this tank here, then although it's mostly empty, the Soviets have no chance of none of these units can cut us off. That's really crucial here. Now the next is the far south. We are removing this unit because it's annoying, and it's quite okay, so our progress is okay, and we capture their supply source, which means nothing to them. All of their units remain completely in supply, but this needs to be captured anyway, so both of this supply source and the road as far to the north as we can need to be cut off. So and we are still trying to destroy as many enemy units as we can here. You cannot simply wait for them to run out of supply. This was a very costly battle, but at least we removed the T-34 itself. And I decide to go bold and rush ahead, threatening the AI usually works out well, because then it kind of panics and it wants to defend itself. And already on turn 2, it's time for our little front line to pull back. We need to be able to resupply at least this unit the next turn, and the only way to do it is if we stay like that. Sorry about this. So if we position our units like this, then even if they cut us off here, then we are still receiving supply from the south. And as you can see, we practically made no progress towards the north, but at least we have removed some units. And once the breakthrough is complete here, these two little battle groups will will coalesce, will merge into one, and they will be one of the most potent strike force you will have in this whole map. So that is why you don't need so many units here. That is why you can send some of these units towards Vyazma, because here they will link up, and from that moment on they are really powerful, and they have two objectives from that moment on: capture Kaluga and also send off some units to capture Tula. Alright, now towards Khrev. This attack goes extremely well, so we can destroy this unit with the... what did it have? Oh, actually, sorry, I didn't notice that we had a new special step. So it's a Katyusha, which is an artillery, but it's not towed, obviously. And again, it's an excellent special step. Not as powerful as a tank, a T-34, but it's really great. We have a few units with Katyushas equipped. So yeah, this one is removed from the map. Fortunately, it didn't cause us any casualties. And this unit already cuts off the supply source of the Soviets. And this is a full cut-off, because the Volga River runs just to the north of this supply source. So obviously the supply cannot cross the river twice. So all of these units in the northwest here that are not in supply, not in range of their own supply, also beyond the river, will be cut off, causing the AI to panic. So this is precisely what you need to achieve here. And this is where it's gonna start turning tricky, because we have separated our forces far enough from our own supply that at least some of them we won't be able to keep in supply. This is impossible, so this is how it is. And what that means is that sooner or later, and rather sooner than later, we need to link up with this road. So you need to push here. That's why you cannot push towards the other side of the river, unfortunately. You need to push here, cut these units off, make sure to reconnect, and use all these combined units to keep pushing forwards in the later turns. Yep, I'm using the Air Force to attack here. It yielded at least some results. I was hoping to remove this unit here. This front line has no chance of breaking through here, unfortunately, to attack across the river, even if it's a bridge. But this unit is cut off, so any damage we deal to it, even if it's suppression, is permanent. So that's something, I guess. Okay, the Soviets' turn is always the same. They start receiving a bunch of units, including, look at this one. It's a unit with 7 active steps and the T-34. So it's practically better than almost anything we field. But as you can see, at least some of their units are starting to run out of supply. Obviously this unit gets cut off. It was to be expected. These tank units also get cut off. It's also to be expected. There is no other way to do this scenario, so you need to do a bit of micromanagement on the north and reconnect them to supply. Otherwise you will fail the mission because you will lose too many units. But this is not as difficult as it might seem. A lot of these Soviet units are already weakened or depleted or whatever, so they're okay. And the AI jumps around as usual. It always does this. And basically it doesn't know where we want to attack. It's actually really funny if you turn south here just by 1 hex, then it will think that you are trying to capture Vyazma, and it will bunch up around the bridge, this bridge here, possibly making your attack to the north easier. So you can actually trick the AI into errors like this. Other than that, it likes to cut us off, like it did here, which is relatively painful, and here, which is more painful. This was... I saw that this could happen, but I didn't realize that this unit would destroy my 3-step infantry division. So when I attacked it, so yeah. And as you can see, the AI is not afraid to use its best units to attack, and it actually works out quite well most of the time. So beware, you will suffer casualties even on the Soviets' turn. And already the storm is appearing in the east. Right. Alright, I just remembered one thing that I did not mention. We see something new here. The Party Worker Battalion in Moscow, it's not on the Victory Hex, and it's green. This is the first unit that we see that has an experience level lower than standard, so it's an extremely weak unit. Even though it has a gun, special step, it's actually not at all dangerous whatsoever, so don't worry about this one. And after a few more entrenchments, yep, here we are. And as you can see, we've only just entered turn 3, and I won this scenario on turn 13. We had time to win it until the end of turn 14, but I was a tiny bit quicker and more successful. But anyway, I've been talking for long enough for now, so I'm going to make the cut of the video right here, and we'll continue from here in the next video. See you next time. Bye bye.